Imagine there's no homelessness. It's easy if you try. No homeless people's freezing to death. Above us only blue skies. Imagine all the homeless living life in peace. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nobody freezing to death in the winter time too. Imagine all the homeless living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday the homeless folks live in warmth and fun too. Imagine there's no homelessness. I wonder if you can. No need for people's freezing to death in the winter time too. Imagine all the homeless folks sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday the homeless people live in warmth and have fun too. Anyhow, so I changed the lyrics because I did that for the homeless Canadians. And we all know John Lennon was all about helping out poverty and peace and doing good things with his songs. So I don't think John Lennon's going to mind too much if I change the lyrics in his song Imagine. Anyhow, that's for all the Canadian homeless folks. Imagine there's no homeless peoples in Canada. Well, that's not going to happen unless we get Justin Trudeau and the federal MPs and our provincial governments to spend a few billion on our Canadian homeless folks. Justin Trudeau, if you see this video, the message is simple and clear. Spend $2 or $3 billion on our Canadian homeless folks so they have apartments and housing, shelters and food. We always got $5 or $6 billion every federal budget for the Canadian Armed Forces, but there's always $0 for our Canadian homeless folks. Why is that? That's because our federal MPs and our provincial governments are neglecting our Canadian homeless folks. Let's start spending $2 or $3 billion from the federal MPs in Ottawa on our Canadian homeless folks. That's Dennis Ramsay's message of the day. If you don't start doing that, every year in Canada, we're going to have 2,000 or 3,000 folks freezing to death in the wintertime. Canada is supposed to be a wealthy country. Everybody brags, oh, Canada's the greatest country in the world. Well, that's bullshit. Because 2,000 or 3,000 homeless people freeze to death every winter in Canada. So, quite simply said, Justin Trudeau spent $2 or $3 billion on our Canadian homeless folks so they have shelter, apartments, and housing. Your neglect is only going to make these Canadian homeless folks freeze to death, starve to death in the wintertime. Stop neglecting our Canadian homeless folks in Canada, and I'd appreciate that. Anyhow, John Lennon was a great singer. He died way before his time. He was shot down in 1980 by Mark David Chapman. And I just can't understand, and I still don't understand, why Mark David Chapman killed John Lennon. John Lennon was our greatest singer and one of our favorite peoples on planet Earth. I still can't understand why Mark David Chapman killed John Lennon. I suppose there's different theories on the subject. One was that Mark David Chapman thought he'd become famous by killing a famous person. That's why he killed John Lennon. That's one theory. Another theory is Mark David Chapman was a paranoid schizophrenic, a stalker, and he was delusional in his thinking. He thought if he killed John Lennon, he was killing a phony, a person that was considered a phony in Mark David Chapman's mind. Anyhow, it was a great musical loss to the world, and it would have been greater if John Lennon could have lived and not been killed by Mark David Chapman. Anyhow, he was reading the book, Mark David Chapman was reading the book, The Catcher in the Rye, and he claims that's the reason why he killed John Lennon, because he thought he was doing the whole world a good deed, because he thought John Lennon was a phony, and John Lennon was not the person he said he was. But anyhow, that's so far from the truth. John Lennon was a great person, a good person, and he didn't deserve to get shot in the back 5 times by a .38 pistol by Mark David Chapman. He didn't deserve that. Anyhow, if you ever, fucking mic. If anybody out there's, this fucking mic, I'll tell you, it's a fucking kind of a mic. If anybody out there in the Kemptville area or Nova Scotia gave good singing mics or karaoke machines, and you're not using them, drop them off to Dennis Ramsey. I live at 27 Canaan, C-A-N-A-A-N Avenue, Apartment B, Yellow House, White Trim. You'll see a mailbox with a 3-leaf clover on it, an Irish clover. Well, I gotta get on the phone. Hello. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yep, bye. Anyhow, that was a fucking phone. When you're doing something, the phone, people will call you when you don't need them. When you really need them, you can't find the people. That's the way people are. When you need them, you can't get them. And when you don't need them, they call you out. That's always the way. Or when you're doing something. Anyhow, if you get any karaoke machines or singing mics and you're not using them, drop them off to Dennis Ramsey at 27 Canaan, C-A-N-A-A-N Avenue, Apartment B, Kemptville, Yellow House, White Trim. I live in the upstairs apartment. You can put the microphones in my mailbox and the karaoke machines, put them in a bag and put them on my door handle. Or call me at 902-365-5044. Anyhow, this microphone has a short in the cord. It's a cheap mic. It's a $7 fucking microphone. Yeah, I think I've done pretty good with this cheap microphone, considering Most people couldn't even sing a song in it. So, anyhow, I produced roughly 1,900 songs with this cheap microphone. So I think I've done pretty good. I've got my $7, my money's worth, if you will, for this microphone. Because it is only a $7 mic. Anyhow, imagine there's no homeless peoples in Canada. We need to get our federal MPs and MLAs to spend a few billion on our Canadian homeless folks. That's my message for the day. Nobody should freeze to death in Canada. Anyhow, this is a cheap microphone. It's a $7 mic. Now just imagine, with a $50 mic or $100 mic, the sound would only be better. So, if anybody out there's got some good microphones, drop them off to Dennis Ramsey at 27 Canaan, C-A-N-A-A-N Avenue, Apartment B, Yellow House, White Trim. Call me at 902-365-5044 if you want a folk art painting. Thank you very much. I gotta go. My time's up. Have a nice day.